In the first part of our discussion of nervous tissue, we will discuss neuron basics. We'll describe the basic cell and function of the nervous system. The endocrine and nervous system work together to maintain internal coordination and homeostasis. The endocrine system uses chemical messengers or hormones delivered via the bloodstream, where the nervous system uses three basic steps. Sense organs receive information, the brain and spinal cord determine appropriate responses, and the brain and the spinal cord issue commands to glands and/or muscles. The nervous system has three main functions. It has a sensory, integrative, and motor function. So the middle function is the integration of various information. There are two major anatomical subdivisions of the nervous system. There is the central nervous system, which is surrounded by bony coverings. The brain is surrounded by the cranium, and the spinal cord is surrounded by the vertebrae. The peripheral nervous system includes nerves, which are bundles of axons contained in connective tissue, and ganglions. A ganglion is a swelling of cell bodies within a nerve. Information enters the body through sensory or afferent nerves. These nerves conduct information through the peripheral nervous system up to the brain and central nervous system. The central nervous system decides what to do, sends output through the peripheral nervous system, and that output goes to the motor or efferent division. The efferent or motor division is divided into the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system includes the sympathetic division, which you may have heard of as the fight or flight division, and the parasympathetic division, which you may have heard referred to as the rest and digest. The functional divisions of the peripheral nervous system include the sensory or afferent divisions, which includes all of the receptors that go into the CNS, central nervous system. This includes both the visceral and somatic sensory divisions. The motor or efferent division is the portion that goes from the central nervous system to the effectors, and it includes the visceral motor division, which is the autonomic nervous system, and this includes effectors such as cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and glands, and this includes the sympathetic and parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. The somatic motor division is the nerves that go to skeletal muscle. You can see the peripheral nervous system is divided into sensory division and a motor division. The sensory division is further divided into the visceral sensory division and the somatic sensory division, whereas the motor division is also divided into visceral and somatic motor divisions. Neurons have three main properties. They are excitable or irritable, which means they're able to respond to changes in the body and the external environment that we call stimuli. They are conductive. They can produce traveling electrical signals, and they can secrete neurotransmitters. When that action potential reaches the end of the nerve fiber, that neurotransmitter will be secreted. The structure of a neuron includes a cell body called a soma with a single central nucleus with a large nucleolus. This cell body includes a network of microtubules and neurofibrils that compartmentalizes the rough endoplasmic reticulum into Nissl bodies. There's also a vast number of short dendrites for receiving signals, and a single axon or nerve fiber which arises from an axon hillock for rapid conduction. This single axon has cytoplasm, which we call axoplasm, and a cell membrane, which we call axolemma, and at the very end, at the synaptic knob, you will find synaptic vesicles filled with neurotransmitter. Here you see a representative neuron with the multiple receptive dendrites, the cell body that has the biosynthetic center, basically where we're going to make proteins and neurotransmitters, the nucleus, the rough ER, the axon hillock, the axon, and this happens to be a myelinated neuron. Peripheral nervous tissue is myelinated by Schwann cells, and they make that myelin, and the gaps in between the Schwann cells are called nodes of Ranvier. You can also see the axon terminals or secretory region of the neuron. There are three major fundamental types of neurons. There are sensory or afferent neurons that detect changes in the body and external environment, and they transmit that information to the brain or spinal cord. Then we have interneurons, which are sometimes called association neurons, and they lie between the sensory and motor pathways in the central nervous system. These are 90% of our neurons. These are the ones that process, store, and retrieve information. The motor or efferent neurons send signals out to muscles and gland cells. These are the organs that carry out responses, and we call them effectors. You can see how the first sensory neuron receives a stimulus. It's taken to the central nervous system where it encounters interneurons, and then the signal is taken back out to an effector on efferent neurons. There's a variety of structures that neurons take. A multipolar neuron is the most common and has many dendrites and one axon. You can see the multipolar neurons on the left side of the screen. A bipolar neuron has one dendrite and one axon. We find these in our nose with our olfactory nerves, our retina to receive light signals, and in our ear. A unipolar neuron carries sensory information from the skin and organs to the spinal cord and has only one entrance and exit from the cell body. Here are two examples of cells in the central nervous system. The Purkinje cell, seen on the left, has an elaborate dendritic tree. We find these cells in the cerebellum of the central nervous system. The structure of this cell matches the function because the cerebellum is required to process all of the incoming information about vision, balance, and body position, and send output from the cerebellum to achieve a desired action. The pyramidal cells, found on the right, are found in the cerebral cortex of the brain, and they're important in neuroplasticity and new memories. We'll take a look at some special features of neurons and neural support cells.